back to our channel, guys. Today we're going to be ranking our houses for this year's Halloween Horror Nights at Universal. We're gonna start off by naming our least favorite house and end off with our favorite.
I think we can both agree that this year all the houses were pretty solid. There weren't any total duds. All of them had their pros and their cons. But now we're gonna show you what we feel was the least favorite all the way to our most favorite. And both of us have different lists, so we're gonna compare them at the end and see how they fare up.
So our least favorite house is gonna have to go to Chucky this year.
So before we give you guys our thoughts on the houses, I'm gonna read you a brief description provided by Universal on their website for each of the houses. So for Chucky Ultimate Kill Count, it says Chucky the serial killer doll is back for a new gore fest. He's hijacked his own haunted house with all kinds of bloody hijinks. You and your friends must try and survive his ultimate kill count.
So walking into the house in the queue, you already get a idea of the plot. So the description is pretty accurate in the sense that Chucky takes over his own house. You already see on the queue that there's videos of them showing what the house is supposed to be and then Chucky just taking over. However, for us, we just didn't find the house to be as scary as some other people might have, but it was very interesting to see, and I really enjoyed seeing just Chucky in real life. You watch those movies as a kid, he's so scary, and then as an adult you go to that house and you see him like as big as he is, and it's kind of surreal. It just wasn't as scary as we would have liked it to be. There weren't as many unique scares in my opinion. So that's why, for me personally, that's why Chucky is pretty low on my list.
Alrighty, moving on to our number 9 slot. This is where our lists start to deviate. At number 9, I have Blood Moon Dark Offerings. And Universal states, in a colonial era village, moon worshippers witness a blood moon at their fall festival. They take it as a sign to hunt down any non-followers, including you and your Scream Squad. I have this one right above Chucky for some of the same reasons. It was beautiful in tone, beautiful in set and scenery. It was not jokey or campy like Chucky was, but for me, it was just the next house that just didn't scare me enough personally. The house is full of cult members. That's gonna be the main scares and scare actors that come out at you. I'm more of a person that gets scared visually by like something creepy or like something that really freaks me out to the core, and that's like monsters or a serial killer, like an icon, you know, that would freak me out seeing in a house. And for the most part, all you're seeing is kind of just villagers and a few people in like the cult hoods, and I don't know, it just didn't really scare me enough to rank it higher than some of the other houses. But once again, like I said, beautiful set design, interesting, unique story to have like this blood moon worshipping cult. I just think it could have been executed better with maybe like a blood moon god monster, I don't know, that could have popped out at the end. That would have been freaky to see, like the moon god they're worshipping or whatever, I don't know. The villagers and the cult members just didn't scare me enough to push it up.
So for me, my number 9 was going to be for Exorcist. So Universal's description says that the Exorcist Believer is a house where 2 missing girls have been found with no memory of what happened to them. But wherever they went, the ultimate evil returned with them. Enter the most terrifying scenes from the new Blumhouse film. So the number 9 spot goes to the Exorcist Believer because there just weren't many monsters, I feel. There was one like prominent monster, but he didn't make as many appearances as the girls did. If you watch the movie, then you'll know that there's these 2 girls. They definitely did a really good job in incorporating both of them throughout the house. I would just say if you're not a fan of The Exorcist, this house might be on the lower end on the list for you. There just weren't as many different types of scares. It more relied on the jump scares, I feel. And I don't know, there just weren't as many sound ones that really get me sometimes, or like make the jump scares more scary for some parts of the house. Unless you're a really big fan of The Exorcist, this one might not be a big one on your list.
Moving right along, number 8 for me was The Exorcist Believer. I felt like that house was a little more scary than Blood Moon, just basically for the subject matter. I mean, it's The Exorcist. I was able to see the movie with my family before going into the house, so I was able to understand it more, see what scenes they took from the movie, and so that was cool to see, and I was able to relate that way. Pros I want to get right out of the way is that the house did a good job with smell, especially in Angela's room. That room smelled awful, awful. They did a good job replicating that scene from the movie. Just the whole house in general has had like a funk to it, that no other house has. So I'll give it that as a plus. But like Esther said, there just wasn't enough unique scares in my opinion. A lot of it was just boo hole stuff, as some may say. Just wasn't the scariest. I do appreciate them for trying to replicate the movie as much as they could with sticking to the source material.
And if you didn't watch the movie, the house also kind of went in a direction different from the movie. It kind of made it seem as though the girls were possessed by a doll or something.
Yeah, right. And you can see in the opening facade when you walk into the streets of Haiti, past that room is like a seance room with a doll shaped on the table, and it makes it seem like that is what possessed the two girls. And in the movie, that's not the case. That what happens at all. I mean, they try and contact the dead to have Angela speak to her mother, and that's what possesses the two. They contacted the wrong spirit. That's what latched onto them and created the horrors to follow. So I found it weird that the house made it seem like that was the main source of the possession. I don't know, but yeah, that's why I have it at number 8. Just wasn't the scariest, but I do appreciate the efforts and the creative choices they tried to make.
So for my number 8, it's gonna be flipped like Cavassio's. So I have Blood Moon Dark Offerings. The reason that is because the scares kind of got me more. One of my worst nightmares is kind of just walking through a place and there's just a bunch of people and you don't know who's gonna come and try to grab you, and they definitely had those types of scares in there. I really appreciated the scenes that they had in that house. It just really felt like you were in that parish town to me. I really liked the immersion of that house, and maybe it's because it was something that could definitely happen. I know that like some people say like things like The Exorcist could happen or whatever, but there's definitely been history of cults and stuff. Just having just having that as a fact, that kind of made the house more scary to me. So I appreciated the immersion, even the clothing choices. I really liked that they wore red. Yeah, I liked the scenes a lot. So I think that's why I liked the house more. And then I also liked some of the scares that they had.
Yeah, that was a great point actually, that she's saying that something like that could happen in real life. So that definitely could add to the scare factor. And yes, that Blood Moon, I will commend them for having one of the most unique scares of the night with mirrors. They use mirrors very efficiently in one of the rooms, and oh man, that got me my second run through. I jumped so hard. So kudos to Blood Moon for a creative scare. Next up at number 7 is Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins. He's this year's icon. This is his house. We both had high expectations of it. What did you think?
So both of our number 7s does go to Oddfellow, so we can both talk about that together. So I really appreciated the outside facade. It just was really nice to see the circus tent outside, and they also had a bunch of pieces of fabric with different astrology signs on them, which is really cool because you also get to see that in one of the scare zones. So that was really interesting. But going into it, we did have really high expectations since, like Kawasi said, it was the icon this year. But it just didn't scare us as much as we'd like for it to scare us. I would say a pro of it, this was one of the houses that I went to this year that incorporated air. So when I was walking through that house, there was a scene where it was daggers just going towards a target, and there was a person on the target, and one of the daggers went through me because it was supposed to be like air went through, and it scared me. So I will give it that. But yeah, I just had really high hopes for it, and I thought I would be more scared than I was, so that's why it's on the number 7 part of my list. But I wouldn't say that it's a bad house.
No.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a solid house. It's just, Oddfellow is HHN's icon this year here in Orlando. So, we had super high hopes for it. I just think they should have went a little more. They should have gave it more, went all out to just really solidify his status, you know, as a, to me it seemed like a hodgepodge of two ideas, like a dark carnival puppet theater type thing combined, you know. And I just think they could have made it more unique to Oddfellow. You know, it just seemed like a carnival gone wrong at most points, and I feel like we've seen that before at Horror Nights.
Yeah.
I feel like they could have incorporated more of the mysticism and powers that Oddfellow has, and they did try to do that once we go into like Oddfellow's lair and stuff in the green room, and we get to see some of the runes and symbols on the side, and I appreciate them, but that was, for me, too little too late to really hit the house home and solidify it as a banger this year. So yeah, that's why we both have it almost mid-table, but so towards the bottom at number 7.
Yeah, it just didn't seem that they made the house as iconic as it should have been, given that he is the icon of 2023's Halloween Horror Nights. Next up, we're going to be talking about our number 6 slot. So for me, I'm gonna have to give it to Dueling Dragons Choose Thy Fate.
This house is about 2 warlocks of great power that return into dragons after trying to take Merlin's spellbook. Now you and your friends are caught in their epic battle. You must choose a path and a victor.
So I put it on the number 6 slot because even though it wasn't as scary as I would have liked it to be, the set was awesome. I loved it. I liked the different lights that they had. I liked the sounds. I liked how the arrows in the, I think one of the beginning opening scenes, how the arrows were not just a sound of an arrow wisping past you, but it just, there was a connection of what you heard and what you visually saw. So definitely look out for that when you're going to that house first. It's just, at this point, I think Kavasi and I can agree, these houses are not bad at all. It's just we had to make them into a list in that way. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely would say this house impressed me a lot. I really wasn't going into this with high expectations for this house because I was like, Dueling Dragons, it's an old ride, like what could they possibly do with this? But they surprised me, and I'm really glad that that's the case. And I also liked that they had the 2 different paths and everything, which was super cool. So definitely check this house out this year.
Like Esther said previously, from this point up, none of these houses were bad. We just had to put them in order.
Yep, there's a right order and a wrong order. And unfortunately, Kavasio's order is wrong because why is Yeti number 6?
So I think Yeti's a number 6 for me, mainly because the things that I have it as cons, I think the other houses just did so much better. In terms of the theming of the house, for me it was just too simple, you know? Yeti's come to kill at a camp, you got an escape. We've had it 2 years ago with Yeti Terror, I think it was 3 years ago for 2019, we had Yeti Terror of the Yukon, and that one was more glacially themed, it was ice, it was cold, and this house was cold as well, and I appreciate them for dropping the temperature to get you in the mood, but I don't know, it just didn't do it for me in terms of scares. The costumes, however, were indeed terrifying. Like I said, I wanted monsters before, I got monsters in this one, but I don't know, I think the pacing and just the storyline throughout the house just seemed a little flat to me. You know, you're going from room to room, seeing the Yetis kill, and that's pretty much it. There's not much ebb and flow, tension, there's no climax towards the end, I don't think, but yeah, I don't know. Just the pacing for me was the main issue. Just felt a little flat. But pros I would give it is the set design. The outdoors parts were very, very cool. Even I believe there's a water scene, I think, to the side of the cabin. There seems to be like a water scene, like you're on a lake cabin. That was pretty cool to see. And yeah, that's the reason why I've got it at number 6.
Now we're gonna jump into our number 5 slots. For me, I'm gonna have to give it to The Darkest Deal.
Blues musician Pine Straw Spruce will have to face the music after meeting with the Collector and trading his soul for musical glory. You and your squad learn the terrible price of fame.
So, if you watch Supernatural, then you'll know a little bit about the Crossroads Demons. And this is kind of something like that, theme-wise. I wouldn't say the execution is the same, but I don't know. It just wasn't. We just had to put scares in order, and maybe it was just the run through I had. It just wasn't as scary for me. I think the scariest part was the actual like devil demon. That scared me. Like I'm gonna have nightmares about that dude. But I don't have anything bad to say about that house other than it just wasn't as scary for me as, or just it didn't tick as many boxes for me as I would have liked it to. But it's not a bad house. Like I love the theming, I love the pace, I love how as you go deeper into the house and deeper into the deal, how just all of the bad things about that contract and how the guy who signed that contract is just dealing with what he really signed up for.
Alrighty, at my number 5 slot, at the halfway point for HHN 32, is Stranger Things. As you know, it's based off of the newest season, but Universal states that you'll need your squad to resist Vecna's gruesome curse. Like 11, now's your chance to stop him once and for all as you take on the scariest season of Stranger Things yet. And that is nothing but true. This season was definitely the scariest for Stranger Things. I mean, when we were watching this, I'm like, I just can't wait for the Horror Nights house because this is just asking for it. I mean, they've got a new nasty villain. He's super creepy. The vibe of the season was the scariest yet. I mean, it was just the perfect lob, the perfect setup to have a smash hit this year. And I feel like with that expectation, I just had super high hopes for it. You know, they got the big soundstage, perfect location for the house, and I don't know, it just wasn't enough for me. When you walk in, you know you're going into Eddie's trailer. It's a good way to start the season off with one of the most iconic scenes, Chrissy, wake up! So it was a good way to get you in the mood for the house. And having that be our first house was a good choice, I think. It was a great introduction to this year's event. But as you move forward, I just don't think it was scary enough, you know? The costumes were cool for the characters. Set design was nice. I feel like it was wonderful, well executed, but I don't know, it was just falling a little flat for me. It got a little stale as you moved throughout the house, you know. I feel like sound-wise, it could have done a little bit better with the music throughout the house. I mean, the Master of Puppets scene with Dustin and Eddie was cool. They got the good sound there. I don't know, every iconic scene you can think of from the season was in the house in one way or another. I don't know, there's not enough scare actors that there should have been in the house. Personally, not sure if that was just a bad run through or what they planned it to be. It just seemed a little empty at times, and that's why I've got it at number 5.
Now we're gonna talk about our number 4. So for me, I'm gonna have to give it to Universal Monsters.
4 Universal Monsters, 1 New Nightmare. Descend into the Paris catacombs where you and your squad will face a new horde of monsters. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the Phantom of the Opera, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and the Invisible Man.
So the reason I have this at number 4 is because, like we mentioned previously, this has nothing to do with how great the houses are. They're great. We just have to put them in an order. I just felt like this house wasn't as even with the representation of the monsters as I would have liked it to be. There was a little bit too much, for me personally, of the Phantom of the Opera. He just takes up that entire first scene.
Half.
Yeah. But I will say, other than that, the monsters were scary to me. Other than the Invisible Man, because it kind of looks like a mummy with glasses. Like, he wasn't as scary to me, but everyone else, they did a great job in the costumes. And there's also a part of the house where the Hunchback kind of just like has like a bungee cord or something,
very
and he like
awesome.
hovers over you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really cool and really creative, which I really liked about that house. But other than that, I just honestly, since it is Universal Monsters, I just wanted for them to have a little bit of something more, and I just didn't feel like I got that this time. I need more screen time.
At my number 4 spot, I'm giving it to Dueling Dragons, Choose Thy Fate. I've got this one right above the halfway mark because I just love the fantasy aspect of the house. I was super stoked to see how they can execute the story and the ride. I'm not sure if the ride followed a similar storyline because I don't really remember it too much, but yeah, I was very eager to see how they were going to bring such a mystical creature into a haunted house format. And for me, I think they executed it very, very well. It was so cool how they saw the spells being casted on the walls, and the ice warrior and the fire warrior was so cool to see. I really enjoyed the different costumes. And then that courtyard scene with the two dragons on both sides. Wow, that was super, super impressive. I mean, way to go on set design. I really appreciate the choose thy fate aspect of the house as well. That was super unique. I haven't seen that before personally in my journeys at HHN, where you can choose which way to go. That's my first time seeing an effect like that. So that was an awesome breath of fresh air. And my only gripe with it is that I wanted more variety in the scare actors personally. We got the same, even though they were cool, we got the same fire and ice guys throughout pretty much the whole house.
Blue man, red man.
Blue man, red man. Yeah, but they were neat. The actors killed it per usual. I just wanted more variety personally. Yeah, and maybe some more scares with the dragons. Yeah.
It was just kind of anticipated because their suits were lit up. It's kind of easy to spot them. Deal.
Yeah.
Now we've hit the top 3 mark. So we're gonna be starting off with number 3, and mine is gonna have to go to The Last of Us.
Step into the world of The Last of Us. You and your squad will encounter the haunting and overgrown world of the video game in a brand new, terrifying way. Stay silent if you want to survive a multitude of clickers, hunters, and more.
So the reason why The Last of Us is at the number 3 spot for me is because I love the set design and I love the smells that they had. It was great. So walking into that house, I think the first thing that you see is that car inside, which I was like, well, how did they get a car in here? So I thought it was pretty cool. And you just see like all the like propaganda everywhere, and it was just really cool to see a video game turned into real life. Like it felt like I had a VR headset on and I was just walking through the house and everything. And there was this one bathroom scene where the spores were everywhere, and they killed it. They put, I think, I don't know, like foam or something, and it just snowed over us, and you could just hear Ellie and everybody just speaking, which was like really, really cool too. And I just really liked the clicker scares. They got me real bad, especially the bloaters.
Oh.
Those scared me really bad. But yeah, I personally loved that house. I had no cons to list on that house, honestly. So yeah, that's my number 3.
Number 3 for me goes to The Darkest Deal. Oh man, this was a sleeper house for me. I went into it with no expectations really, as it is a Universal original. It wasn't a huge IP, so it was a pleasant surprise. Just the description of it alone, the main theme was very interesting. I wanted to see what they can do with it. Was it going to be a music-based house with heavily like The Weeknd was, where it's very soundtrack based? Or were they going to do just regular boo holes? I don't know. And what we got was something spectacular. I mean, walking into the blues bar, I think, I don't remember the exact name, but you're into the cornfield, the crossroads where he goes and signs that deal, and you're met with a collector just giving you a rundown of what you can get and the price for fame and everything, and just sign away. And that's what Pine Straw Spruce does. And the house is just paced so well. It just goes scene by scene, story by story, seeing him and the consequences that comes with signing that deal. I loved everything about that house. Smell, sound design, scares, the costumes were unique. As Esther said, it had one of the scariest masks of the event, which is what the collector looked like. So terrifying. And yeah, lots of unique scares. I loved the musical elements of it. They had trumpet playing, sax playing, even though Pine Straw Spruce is a banjo or guitarist mainly. It was so awesome to see so many unique aspects come together. Everything was so nice about that house. I had no complaints personally. at times it could get a bit too dark, where like the skull scare actor I think is, where like you're in like a graveyard I think. That's the only gripe I have, but it's a haunted house. It's gonna be dark. Can't really complain. So yeah, that's why I've got Darkest Deal at my number 3 spot.
So now we're gonna jump into our number 2s. For me, that's gonna have to go to Stranger Things. I love the show. So seeing all of that happen, like from watching the show and going, how are these kids supposed to escape Vecna? Like, and then seeing that in real life is so cool. I think that they did a great job with the Vecna costumes, and there was just so many scenes from Stranger Things that I wasn't expecting them to put in that house. Like the scene where they're in Eddie's trailer and they're trying to like bridge the gap between the two worlds. That was so cool. And it was really, really nice to see just everything from the previous seasons just come together from the show and also translate onto the set design and everything. Like, I just loved it. I really, really liked that at the end. For me, when I get out of a house, I think that the scares are over, right? And they got me because there was
a Demogorgon right at the end as soon as you leave.
Yeah, so
Man,
it was scary.
I got her good when we did that one.
Yeah, so I have no complaints about that house. I personally thought they did a really, really, really good job with that house. So that's why it's in my number 2.
At the number 2 spot, the runner-up for Champion of the Night, House of the Event for me personally, is The Last of Us. When we're talking about immersion, bringing you in to the world, this is the house that does it this year. I played the game, I haven't watched the show, and that doesn't really matter because this house, they clearly state, is based on the video game, not based on the Pedro Pascal show that everyone's been watching lately, so just keep that in mind. Anyways, yeah, immersion is something I value near and dear with everything pertaining to theme parks. I mean, it's pretty much almost the highest aspect of what I look for in a theme park, an event, an attraction, and especially a haunted house. And The Last of Us definitely delivered on that aspect. It brought the game to life. They present you with many threats, hunters, the people, the clickers, bloaters, so many cool things to really feel like you're in danger of in the house. I mean, the first scene is so hectic. Like, they plunge you right into the action as soon as you enter the house, and I feel like that's such a good way to bring you into the world of The Last of Us because it's constant fear, constant survival, and that's the mode that house really puts you in. And yeah, like Esther said, the infected were so cool. Clickers, awesome, beautiful costumes. Bloaters were awesome. When I went with my friends, I mean, one kind of came around the corner and sprinted to him right into his face and really got him good on that one, and I was behind him, so it was so cool to see. I mean, there's grand sets. You've got Joel up there shooting, Ellie up there shooting. It was so cool to see, and it was well done. The soundtrack was so iconic. You hear it in the queue, you hear it in the house, and it just takes you to a whole other world of The Last of Us, and that's why I've got it at number 2.
Now we're gonna move on to our final house, number 1. For me, I'm gonna give it to Yeti. I disagree strongly with Cabasio because he had it so low on his list. I loved everything about the Yeti house. I thought it was really cool that they incorporated the temperature, and you just saw the battle between Yetis and their helpless victims. And at one point in the house, you see a dead baby Yeti, and that just really took it home for me. I don't know. There was one part where, like, I think a Yeti, like, attacked from above. That scared me. I don't know if because they're big, they just got me really bad. Like, I got scared a lot in the house. I think the reason why I have it at number 1 is because I got scared in that house the most. Like, at one point, a Yeti had his hand in my face. Like, he was about to touch me. But yeah, I really love that house. I kind of like that it was simple because I feel like sometimes you do just need a simple scare, and I think that Yeti really does that really well. So yeah, that's why Yeti is my number 1.
I will commend the Yeti for having one of the most aggressive scare actors. Like, I think Yeti and The Last of Us, the bloaters and like the Bigfoot Yeti, like they really come at you like in your face real strong, and like I commend them for putting in the extra effort, especially it's easy to do with the big costume. Like the bloater, it freaks the senses out, it really thinks like they're gonna get you. So I commend them for that. I'll give them that credit.
But I will say one thing about the Yeti. I don't think that the bear is scary because I think he's kind of like ugly cute. So yeah, I think I just really like the costumes, and maybe that's why I also like the baby Yeti. It made me sad. I literally was like, oh no, baby Yeti. But yeah, I liked it a lot.
Alrighty, number 1 and the crown of Horror Nights this year, in my opinion, was Universal Monsters. I think this house was phenomenal from start to finish. Especially start. You walk in and you're in that transports you right into Paris. You're about to go into the catacombs. The guards on top warning you about this murder and this attack, and the rain. You feel the rain on your skin when you walk in. It gives it such a nice creepy vibe, and it was a great way to introduce you to the house. And I just love the lore of all the monsters they bring. Every year I enjoy the Universal Monsters houses so much because they're awesome. They're super cool. I mean, it's not your traditional slasher, it's not a demon, it's not a huge icon that we're known, like popular ones like Freddy, Jason, or anything, but they're the more low-key ones, the universal ones, the classics. And to make them scary in this modern day is pretty hard because the movies won't scare the average moviegoer, but the houses do, and that's what I love about them. I mean, the only gripe I have with it, though, I agree with Esther, they did give Phantom a little too much house time. I think they should have evenly spread it. I feel like they missed the opportunity to have the other monsters shine and give them more exposure. People be like, wow, I didn't think Jekyll and Hyde can be so scary. But when they had their times were awesome. Awesome and epic. Sure. I mean, the Hunchback with the bungee scare, that was crazy, coming out of the bell tower. Jekyll and Hyde, his costume was freaky. It was a really scary costume that caught me off guard. And yeah, the house was awesome. Scares got me. You didn't know where Phantom was gonna come from. You didn't know where Jekyll and Hyde would come from, if you would see the human version or the monster version. There was a bit of suspense there, and yeah, that house was riveting, gripping, thrilling from start to finish, and that's why I gave it number 1 spot this year.
Take our list with a grain of salt. We really want everybody to just enjoy their time at Halloween Horror Nights, and whether you disagree or agree with us, we would really love to know in the comments.
Yes. When I'm with my friends, everyone had a different list. Some people had Blood Moon at number 1. I had it almost bottom. It was so much variety in the list, and that just goes to show that Universal put out some quality houses this year. This was a solid year for HHN. I mean, from the houses, the food, everything. I think it was a very, very enjoyable event this year.
I think the only gripe we had was probably the scare zones, but yeah, we just didn't think that the scare zones were as scary as they should have been.
So yeah, we're super excited for next year's event. We had a blast this year, and thank you guys for coming along with us on our Halloween adventure and watching all of our content that we love to bring to you guys.
Alrighty, we'll see you guys on the next one.